Okay.
What a day.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. Um, so, uh, we really welcome you to this talk. This is a hard evening for us. We're filming this on the evening of after the 2024 presidential election. And for people all around the world we've been in touch with today, this is a time of intensity and people are fatigued, and there's some elation among some, and there's fear, there's uncertainty, there's numbness, there's hopelessness, and for some people there's hopefulness. And regardless of how any of us voted, it is definitely a time of extremes. And worldwide, it is a time of extremes with great turmoil and divisiveness. There's intolerance. In many cases, there's an abandonment of a regard for truth and a regard for honesty and a regard for other beings, particularly people.
What
There's
to speak of nature.
not to speak of nature.
Yeah.
And there's a disregard for living in alignment with one's own sense of moral ground. And so it is a time of great turmoil. And regardless of what you believe, there is no hiding from, no running away from the nature of reality. And the nature of that reality is that the nature of impermanence and the nature of interconnectedness. And that's true in politics, it's true in love, in life, in death. These underlying truths are unstoppable. And the resistance to, or attachment to, or the disengagement from, or the false belief that any one of us can avoid this inherent nature of reality is the cause of great confusion and great suffering. And it's what in yoga we call hala hala. And the hala hala of samsara, the poison of conditioned existence that comes out when we practice, it comes to the surface. And in times of great change like this, like we are on the cusp of today, it is really, really important to ride these waves of change and to remain grounded. And one of the best ways to remain grounded is by connecting to others, to nature, to loved ones, and really to your own sense of truth and your own sense of meaning and responsibility to others, so that you can be and so that you can act in ways that are truly beneficial rather than harmful
Yeah.
or distracted. And so we will talk tonight about building bridges and staying open, acknowledging things like pain and fear and suffering, and also acknowledging those along with the great joys in life, all of which really are part
Those
of
are really, yeah, they're
samsara.
connected.
Yeah. So, unlike some of our talks, we thought we would, at least for ourselves, take just a few moments at the beginning of this to just sit for a few moments together as a few more people trickle in, and also as we get grounded in this sort of virtual world, this cyber world of being connected through the internet to people all over. And so that's what we'll start with. And inviting you to, if you're not muted, please check and please mute yourself. And we just experimented with the bell. The bell doesn't really sound. So maybe you can just say ding. but whether you're standing or sitting or lying down or pacing.
You can meditate and pace back and
Yeah,
forth.
that's one of my methods. So whatever position you can feel steady in, stable in, we ask you to just take a moment and find that position for your body and to settle in. And your eyes can be open or closed. And what we are aiming at is allowing the body, and on a day like today where there is transition happening, allowing the mind and the heart, the body, to really find a sense of stillness and a sense of support from the feeling of dropping in through the physical body, dropping in to being connected through your body, your breath, to the surface upon which you are standing or sitting. And noticing those constant wave patterns of change, mind patterns coming and going, emotions rising and dissipating and fading or not. And this sort of awakeness that you may be feeling in your nervous system, allowing that to soften by bringing the breath into your awareness. And by bringing the breath into the awareness and allowing the sensation of the heart in the core of the body to float, be spacious as is possible, which is not always that spacious. But allow whatever space there is within the core of your being to be there, unobstructed. Allowing the breath to guide the mind into that space of open-heartedness, kindness, caring that is part of your nature, everyone's nature. Let the mind dip into the heart. And when the mind wanders, simply bring the mind back to this sense of dropping into the heart. When you notice mind, emotion, distraction arising, drop into the sensation of open, clear spaciousness in the core of the body. Softening the palate, softening the tongue, softening the breath, softening the mind through the breath. A taste of stillness. Thank you.
Let's look at the invocation chant. See if there's anything new in it. And, I'll chant it without melody. Bande Gurunam Charanarabinde Sandarshita Swaatma Sukhavabodhe Nishrayase Jangalikaya Mane Samsara Hala Hala Moha Shantyai. So, Bande Gurunam. The first thing that jumps out is Gurunam is plural, and so it's a contemplation of the 2 feet of the plurality of gurus or teachers. And so right away it's kind of undoing the possible dominance or exclusivity or the tendency we have to make cults, religious cults or all types of different cults. And so we're able to see that there's potentially endless numbers of these nice beings.
And the question we were talking about earlier is, and I'm not sure about this, but, are events, can they be gurus or teachers in that same regard? And how does that play into one's understanding of that, events, and then one's own response to them?
Right, because we often will start out we'll have a concept of the teacher, and it could be just a picture of someone, or it could be a deity or something from a temple, or it could be a famous scripture or book, and we would say, oh, that is the teacher. And that allows us to focus the mind, and we can often relax a little bit and go, and that way we can focus, and then you're just getting started, and oftentimes we just say, oh, I found the way, and of course my way is the best way, and everyone must convert to it. But so the next line, how's it goes? Sandarshita Swaatma Sukhavabodhe, that it brings in front of your eyes the awakening of the joy of the Swa-atma. And so Swa-atman is philosophically, it's a term that just keeps going deeper and deeper. So whatever you decide it is, that's a nice beginning, and keep looking, because it's much more interesting. And so we dive deeper and deeper. And so Swa-atman. So Atman means the self, but then the Swa-atman means the real self, or the self of yourself. And oftentimes, of course, I think, oh, this is me, this body. And then, certain things happen. And I go, maybe it's not me.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, it's like an impermanent vehicle for sure. Um, and then the chant goes on. How do I go? Nishreyase jangalikaya mane. So nishreya means without any kind of residue. And so we're having this awakening into this pure happiness, but it doesn't have leftovers or residue. And residue is something that it's what we're experiencing, particularly today. It's just like, and it's yuck. It's that which couldn't quite be digested or couldn't quite be dealt with. That's going to make things continue to go around and around and around. Or it's going to, for some of us, will continue to be diluted or suffering. And for others, it will be like something that gives momentum for, actually connecting with the world. And so the fact that there's no residue or leftover, samsara, then the final word, nishreyase jangalikaya mane, is referring again to the jungle physician. And this is, of course, a reference to the fact that there are, historically in many cultures, these characters who are actually often the great poets and teachers, not necessarily, and occasionally, but not necessarily prophets or someone, but they're something much more easy to have in your heart. Samsara hala hala moha shantiye. And so samsara hala hala moha shantiye. So moha is the delusion, shantiye is to make sham, not just peaceful or calm, but brilliant. Like the word Shambhala doesn't just mean peaceful, it means. And it's the hala hala of flowing together. So samsara means that which flows together and it gets all stuck in itself. And this is pretty much a description of the world today,
Life, yeah.
life in general, in which things flow together and they get confused. And everything is interconnected, of course, but when we get confused, we can't tell truth from fiction. We get confused that the symbol of something or that which represents something is the same as that same thing. And so you can get all kinds of problems, from complete misunderstanding to misrepresentation to lying, or to just getting confused between the code for something and the actual thing in itself. And so this is all the different levels philosophically. And so so that's samsara, and then hala is considered to be the poison which arises when one doesn't really go deeply. And it's inevitable in all of the different practices and things that we do, that occasionally we'll just stop at a certain point. We'll go, I got it. I'm happy with me. I'm happy with my culture, my people, my this. And what's going to happen is that's going to produce hala, or this kind of toxic residue that has to be digested. Of course, that's the mythology of, and so that's the famous story of, Shiva drinking this terrible poison that resulted from the churning of the ocean and the working of the gods and the demons together and stuff. And so this came, and that was really gave hope to people.
Yeah.
So,
And so with the samsara, because it's often translated as conditioned existence,
yeah,
right? And, you know, when I was thinking about this over the last couple of weeks, I had really looked closely at, you know, this idea that these practices, but also the capacity to wake up through the embodied experience to what these practices offer. That, you know, that what comes out like in that myth at first can be this, what feels to be poison, what feels as if it is going to, you know, kill you. And then if you are somehow able to watch the transformation of that poison as in the myth
yeah,
was done, that you then reach a state of transformation yourself. And that then you can, at the same time, get in touch with what it actually feels like within the embodied experience to experience in your translation of this chant. It's like the joy of pure being, of and so what that means, what is the joy of pure being? What would you say that is?
well, that's where the work, we've got our work laid out for us. And so the way the traditions go is we, all of us, we focus our minds, we choose something, and it that help us to focus. And it could be a scientific truth, or it could be the beauty of a particular tree or mountain or clouds or a person, or, and so we're then able to go, wow, I can relax and focus. And then we all do that all the time. Even people who are not quote unquote religious, they still have their own religion in a sense. And, you know, it could be an excellent one. You know, I'm thinking of a few scientific friends. But then what happens is we stop really looking, but if we really look, we then start to see in it this relaxing experience of interconnectedness. We start to see something as deep, not necessarily as we understand how it's connected together, and this can be, and that's called dhyana or meditation, and so you can actually see the background, and this is like a huge realm where you can look at something and you look deeply at it and you say, wow, that's the background of it, and you have a new appreciation for it. And you go, wow, that's so wonderful. But then, still, the ability to have what, you know, they call it samadhi in these various texts. This is where actually you let go and you actually experience the embodiment in the sense of the breath, the entire experience of sensation and feeling as, I was going to say breathtaking, breathtaking, in which it opens. And this is something that is done almost accidentally, because you'll have an idea of what it looks like. I want to have, you know, a meditation where the top of my head turns purple or something, and You get all excited about that. But that attachment to that will keep you from actually paying attention to what's really going on, which is something much deeper in relationship to, I was going to say all beings, or a relationship to who you actually are or other beings actually are. And it's something that isn't arranged by the ego itself. It's when you're able to see the process of the ego as awesome, as sacred, though potentially miserable.
Yeah, and the other day I was reading a book, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, which I can't remember at the moment. An interesting book that was critical of modern meditation, modern spiritual practices as lacking in this capacity to, in a sense, to do just that. I think it was an unfair assessment of how the world of modern spirituality is and works. But there is I think when we get onto the wheel of samsara, or the wheel of conditioned existence, which can happen within one's own yoga practice, and often does happen within one's own spiritual practice, or within a religious setting, where you have lost sight of the underlying idea that you are connected to others, that you are, number one, not separate, but number two, due to the fact that you are not separate, there is this intrinsic responsibility and desire to
connect,
to be of service, to connect, and to deeply shift the sort of habitual patterns. Because in samsara, it seems that in addition to just one's own private little mind, the way we get off in our own samsaric little worlds, is there is this cultural and global level of conditioned existence that is that is simply a natural response to humans interfacing. And then we can get tugged and pulled in certain directions with that, and lose sight of our responsibility and the joy of connecting. And so when we speak of, and when the chant talks about the essence of and the joy of pure being, it seems in a sense this is like this really important seed of integrity, to remember what that feels like, what that joy of being able to ride the inevitable changes while feeling the stability of connecting through your own body to earth, through your own breath to others, through your own thoughts and minds and actions, in putting others in a position of as much value as you put on yourself. That's this route of or this path towards liberating yourself from this existence of being conditioned by your own mind or cultural patterns or whatever.
Yeah, because there's the tendency of, well, it's kind of the ego structure where we just want to escape the whole thing, or all of those people deserve it, which
No.
or in which you're not really seeing even you know, you see people who are, or people or pets or something, you know, that are easy to have in your heart, but then it's the ones that, and some are, you know, just wonderful, but then there are always the ones that are different, that seem to be enemies or very different. And so there's this huge challenge in communicating and doing whatever can be done to help bridge that gap. You know, if they are suffering, to help them rather than kind of delight in punishing them or something. And that's
the art form.
that's the art. Yeah. And I think that, you know, that the real teachings of, you know, that these traditions, I don't want to say there is a single, that these traditions is that it has to go that deep into our own hearts so that we can find others there.
And how do you do that? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a question that is, how do you do that?
Oh, occasionally I do it with communicating.
I got that on the record now.
It's good, as well as, you know, just having, you know, a practice in which I can watch myself be restless or watch the breath, but always there's that level where, you know, there's connection to others.
Yeah.
Occasionally communicate.
You know, and one of the things that for me has been very powerful is this idea from the Buddhist teachings of having a clear intention, a clear sense of what your purpose, or, you know, who you are and why you are here. What is really the driving force that you connect with, kind of when no one else is around, when you really feel at home in yourself. The driving force of having a profound intention to navigating times of difficulty with really feeling truth, authenticity, a desire to overcome one's own, you know, shortcomings that keep all of us kind of in our own stories of persecution or of dominance or, you know, sort of torpidness, the stories that keep us stuck. And you know, one of the things that has been very powerful for me in the work that I've done at the Being with Dying program is to think deeply about what is my intention in life, meaning what is it that when I get in a crunch situation where I don't see a door out, or where I don't see what action I can take that will be helpful or even allow me myself to stabilize.
Yeah.
If I have taken the time ahead of time, which I have done over the last 20 years, to really consciously decide, why am I here? And ask myself, what is the meaning of this precious time that I have on this planet? And what can I do to make the most of that? And for, you know, in sort of the classic Buddhist intention would be, you know, to cultivate compassion and kindness, to cultivate something like peace, or to cultivate connection, or to cultivate a sense of truth. finding the things in life that really give you a sense of meaning that goes beyond your corporeal existence. And by putting into words for any one of us what we imagine and what we really resonate with as why am I here? Then when the time comes and there's a crunch and you don't know what to do, the first thing that you can do after you've dropped into the body and let the mind begin to settle is to then ask yourself, why am I here? And what action can I take that is reflective of what truly I am in alignment with my moral ground, my ethical ground, my belief systems. And so to take the time to say, what is it that has meaning to me and what can I do in this juncture? Knowing sometimes that, there's nothing overt one can do.
Right at the moment, but maybe there'll be the opportunity. Yeah, so there's a lot of, it's really the ability to ask questions, rather than to, even though your mind will produce answers, keep asking the questions,
And we've
on and on.
Yeah, and the big question, I think, and we talk about this quite often, is, if you have, we talk about intention and motivation and how there can be a schism between those two sometimes in the way we actually behave. So you think, oh, I have this great intention to bring peace into the world. And then you start having actions that you take. And if you pause at certain junctures and say, well, why am I motivated? What is motivating me here? And is that really in alignment, really meshed with what my intentions are? And it is not always the case. And so being able to have that clarity of what holds meaning to you, what feels and resonates deep inside of you with truth and meaning. And then being able to step out of yourself enough to say, am I acting in alignment with that? What are my motives? And then stopping if your motives are out of alignment and saying, whoa, that's not right.
And I think that's a phenomenon that has happened religiously, historically, for thousands of years, if not more.
Yeah.
Is that, you know the words, but then the actual motivation is, even if it's, I'm going to get liberated, or I'm going to get money, or I'm going to get fame, or power.
To the moon.
Or to the moon.
Or Mars.
Or Mars, yeah.
Yeah. It's true. And we were talking earlier about rituals being kind of a reminder of intention. Earlier in the day, we were talking about that and how rituals play a part in these classic teachings and then in everyday teachings.
Yeah, we're all ritualistic. Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example of someone who isn't, and I can't quite come up with it. But and sometimes it's in a very sad way. If someone is following their rituals down the street or something. But
well, and rituals like doing pujas and offering fire sacrifices,
nice.
They are. But then, how did rituals become samsaric?
That's a good
That's
question.
a good question.
Yeah, how did it happen?
And
And I think that's part of many of these traditions who, as they have communicated and interchanged over thousands of years, they're starting to say, oh, this is how, you know, a nice ritual or a nice belief or something becomes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then has to be, you know, forced onto somebody else, or
Yeah, and it's
even you know, in yoga that can happen.
but you know it's like a ritual becomes something like a reminder of why you're here, why you're doing what you're doing. You know, I'm thinking of how, you know, it's a reminder of a time that you were deeply moved. And
Mm-hmm.
even if it does become, you know, and I've seen this in Western churches and in India, in people going to, you know, doing their pujas, etc. I've seen people doing it with great joy and spirit, but I've also seen, you know, sort of it's like, well, let me do this. How much time do I have to do that? Let me go and do that, and then I'll do my shopping, and then I'll do this, and it becomes just another part of the day, something to check off the list. But you know, even simple things like, you know, having someone give you a gift, or finding that holds meaning to them, that then therefore holds meaning for you, that reminds you of connection, or being out in the woods and finding a little piece of beautiful bark that just happened to pop when the sunlight was just so, and you picked it up and bring it home, and then you put it on
Your window. Yeah.
windowsill, and then 10 years later your windowsill is like cluttered with all this
Pieces of bark
pieces of
and
bark
other
and,
things.
feathers, and you've forgotten, you know. It's so that the staleness that rituals can you know, can induce, and yet the value that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to confuse anyone, but to sacrifice, the sacrifice is always there.
Yeah.
And time will come when that has to be the stage. Oh, we should
Yeah, so
see what the...
samsara is where we're at, not only today, but actually always. Samsara is always there, and the poison, meaning the samsara itself, meaning there is conditioned existence within oneself potentially, but in the world. That is part of existence, right? And that what we find when we practice, as we say, the hala, the poison arises, is an awareness of that way that all of us have a tendency to become complacent or dull, or part of something where we have lost sight of the truth of who we are, where we've lost sight of what it is that has integrity, and what our intentions are. And, you know, we wanted to sort of go through a few things that might be helpful, that might help you when you feel stuck, or when you feel overwhelmed, or when you feel on the precipice of something that is a moment of change. And it is, you know, really to find some ritual for yourself that reminds you of whatever it is that holds meaning for you. And that's why that little piece of bark can do that, because as you were saying, those moments where we feel moved, the moments where we feel that deep, pure joy, they can't be planned, but they're sparking a seed within us that is
Yeah.
needing to be sparked.
Yeah. And that's our nature as people, is to practice, hopefully a better quality practice. But then that's only part of it, is then letting go is the other part of it, the relief.
And also, I think the sense of knowing that we can do what we can do, that we may have bigger sort of aspirations of what we want things to be, or how we would like to contribute to a better world. And at certain junctures, it's simply not possible to do a global change. But in every single interaction that any one of us has, it's always possible to, reflect outwards the sense of, the non-divisiveness that is part of human nature too, and to build bridges rather than shatter bridges, to connect with others even when there is, you throw a connection across and someone rejects it, to not take things personally and try again in different ways and or in different situations. And it's vital to maintain the integrity and the strength to be able to do that, to find rituals, to find practices that keep you strong and keep you alive and keep you inquisitive.
Inquisitive and connected.
Connected. Yeah.
Patient.
Patient.
Compassionate.
So, and what we thought we would do is end this evening with a really wonderful quote from Rachel Naomi Remen. And it's a quote written for caregivers, or for anyone really. But it's very relevant to this thing of how do we serve? How do we bring to life, especially in a time that is either difficult for us or one of great change? How do we maintain a connection to the sense of things changing and things being interconnected? And the quote is this: helping, fixing, and serving represent three different ways of seeing life. When you help, you see life as weak. When you fix, you see life as broken. When you serve, you see life as whole. Fixing and helping may be the work of the ego. Service, the work of the soul. And that's where we're feeling deep connection with all of you who've come to this talk, with all of our students and teachers. And we consider all of our students our teachers. The Guru Nam, for all of us, are one another. That's where the real juice in this practice is, that we're in it together. So,
shall we do the chants too?
Yeah.
So we'll do the Sahanavavatu, which is a really nice, absolutely non-sectarian chant. Sahanavavatu, may we together work. And Sahano Bhunaktu, may we together enjoy or consume. Sahaviryam Karavavahe, may we together with great courage work. Mavid Vishavahe, and as a result of that, may we not fight or hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all together.
Yeah.
So we'll chant it and then. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navaditam Astu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, everyone.